Today we're gonna cover some great content on successful deployment for content collaboration. But before we get started, I have a very special guest. So he is going to tell you first a customer story. So let me welcome to the stage Technology Strategist, Office of the CTO, Victor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Bernadette. I don't know about special, but I'll try my best. As Bernadette mentioned, my name is Victor Rodriguez. I'm a technology strategist in the Office of the CTO. But in my former life, a whole 8 months ago, I was a CTO for a healthcare organization in South Florida. It's a health center control network, a network of community health centers across the country that mostly see homeless and underinsured or low-income patients. 4 years ago, I started a transition to get everything moved into the cloud. We were determined to burn down our data center and said, we're done with that. Let's move everything into a public cloud. About 2 years after I started that transition of 2 years of planning, dealing with Microsoft, dealing with all different kinds of vendors, including Citrix, we thought we had a plan in place. We said, this is the perfect plan, we're moving forward. And then I cut the purchase order for the Citrix Cloud component. I get a link in my email, and 20 minutes after I got that email, I have my Citrix file environment all set up, or I thought I did. You know, we get in there because, you know, as technologists, we all believe that we're like Tyrion Lannister. You know, we all want a trial by combat. We want to get in there and just heads on do everything that it takes to get stuff set up as quickly as possible. So I learned the hard way that going in there and just clicking on everything and setting everything up and sending files is not the correct way to set up the Citrix files. So to the point where when I finally got in touch with my CSM, 2 weeks later, we really had to delete everything that I've done and start from scratch. And it took us just, you know, a couple of days to put a plan together, formulate what we wanted to do, how we wanted to activate, do the Active Directory integration, how we wanted to do nested groups and things like that, make it feasible for our users to be able to add people into ShareFile without having this convoluted, you know, click and go on every single individual user. And if you're a small organization that's looking at just 50 users, that interface is fine. But we were 9,000 users. There was no way that my help desk was going to sit there and go into this ShareFile interface and set up those 9,000 users. So I told that story to Bernadette a couple of days ago, and she said, you have to get on stage and tell everybody what you did. Now I feel like a fool, but.
Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you so much.
And go this way.
My name is Bernadette Risley, and I'm the manager of Customer Success Management. And I have a team based out of Raleigh that actually supports all of Americas, but mainly I focus on the Northeast and New England. And the Customer Success Management team, what we do is we actually help you adopt to the new technology that you purchased. When you become a subscription customer with Citrix, you come to our team, and you are then allocated a Customer Success Manager. So with me today, I have Brian Galetta. He's our lead customer success engineer. And together, we're going to talk to you about how we help our customers and provide you with some real-world lessons on content collaboration deployment. We're going to start today with first designing for success. First step, right? And then we're going to do some deployment scenarios. We're going to do migrate to content collaboration, so there's different ways in which you can do that. And then my favorite is making adoption happen, right? And I'm going to show you a few ways in which your customer success manager can help you do that as well. We're also going to ask you to tell us your stories. So I'm going to pass it over to Brian.
Yep, hey everybody. So Brian Galetta, lead CSE on our customer success team. We want to talk a little bit about content collaboration and talk about design. The first pieces are going to be strategy, planning, and we have to ask the right questions. If we're not asking the customers the right questions, then we're going to have loopholes, we're going to have security issues. But we also want to make sure that we keep the end users in mind. The end users are the goal here to make sure that that everything that we do looks and makes it such that the end users have a great experience using the product. Again, security considerations. IT is super concerned about their data, where it lives, who they're sharing items with. So we'll work through a little bit of the configuration there. So the questions toward design, right? How do users work? Where do they work from? From where? Are they in the office? Are they remote? Are they online? Are they offline? You know, what tools? Every day we see users absorbing more and more tools for them to work on, from their laptops, corporate devices, virtual apps, virtual desktops. Are they using map drives? Do they log in via GPO? Are they using a browser to access files, maybe through some other third party? Again, there's a lot of items to choose from. And we want to make sure that we give them the right access to those files right from the beginning.
And that can be really overwhelming too, because usually our customer is only thinking about that first use case, when truly what you should be thinking about, you know, how flexible this piece of technology is for all the different use cases, because you really do need to understand not only that one use case, but how this technology will be customized to all the other ways in which you can use that within your organization.
Yep. Very important information there, Bern. Thank you. The last piece on this side is, you know, understand who they're collaborating with. Users, maybe they're not supposed to share documents with third parties. Maybe they're only supposed to have internal access to files. We need to determine whether or not we need to lock some people down. Again, do they need access to third parties, but maybe those third parties don't have the rights to do certain items with those files once they receive them. So talk a little bit about that as well. A little bit more on the security front, right? What is the goal of IT security around the data? Is the data sensitive? Who has access to it when it's shared? Who can basically download it, save it for offline use? Are there requirements for PII or DLP? It's important to understand that, you know, certain documents might contain certain sensitive information. We want to make sure that we put controls to make sure that that data is not shared with third parties or otherwise. Maybe even employees can share that data, or maybe nobody can do anything with it other than just view it on, you know, in a browser. Where can it reside? This is a really big piece of content collaboration. So we can have a hybrid model where you maybe use our cloud storage. You can set up your own on-premises storage. You can use existing drives that you might have, home drives, department libraries, et cetera. So we need to understand and focus on a lot of the different ways customers have data in their organization.
And I know we're going to touch on that quite a bit in the upcoming slides, so stay tuned.
Yep. Are users allowed to actually download files for offline use? Can they be locally stored on the client? Maybe there's some selective sync that can happen in the background when users are traveling, et cetera. They don't have access to the internet. They know they're going to be going away offline for a little while, so are users allowed to download that information out when they're outside of the office? A good point to mention is also about retention. You know, customers sometimes don't want huge amounts of data backing up, so they want to set controls in place to say, hey, you know, I have certain files, some certain folders, and maybe they're just internal, users are just collaborating here and there. We don't need this data to last very long. We can set retention requirements and essentially give the users, you know, a little bit of freedom to act, but that not overblow how much storage gets used up. And again, authentication is a huge piece of security, right? We're seeing a lot of sessions here this week about SAML and Okta and all the different two-factor authentication methods. We want users to basically understand that we're not going to try to lock them down, but we want to make sure that we're being secure. We have the opportunity to provide SAML so they can use just their regular AD credentials. Two-step for clients or employees, maybe admin users that log into the interface using maybe a local password. We want to protect that a little bit more so we can provide two-step authentication there, providing a time-based or just a text message such that the user gets prompted for additional authentication. So we'll go over some deployment scenarios. Again, deciding where the data needs to live, providing users with the right policies and information right when they're created. We don't want to have a situation where users are created and we're basically giving them access to something that they shouldn't have. So we want to make sure we use AD groups and assign them to the right folders and access upon login. And then decide on what tools they're going to wind up using. The tool usage is extremely important. There are at least 5 or 6 different tools, and I'll go over those with you guys. Some users are comfortable working in browsers. Some users are comfortable working in Outlook. I mean, we have options for all of that. So again, where will the data be stored? You know, we're going to stand up a content collaboration service. We have to decide on where it's stored, but looking at this slide, I'm pretty sure that everyone in here can probably say that they've used some of these. I mean, do we have show of hands that they're using at least 5 of these services today? Yep, exactly. So the content collaboration option gives administrators rights to maybe provide these types of third-party storage or even internal storage, such as SharePoint libraries or even files and folders like the department drives. We can provide that in a single interface for you. So just be mindful that when it comes to the users and their work, it doesn't matter where the data is really stored. It's just a matter of how they're going to get access to it and use it. But moving forward from that point, when you stand up content collaboration, we have a really great option for you as far as storage is concerned. Again, we take the headache away from you to have to manage all that on the back end. There are multiple locations as well where you can actually deploy the storage in our cloud. So if you have data centers on the East Coast, you have users East Coast, West Coast, you maybe have some overseas. At the time those users are provisioned, we can actually assign them to a storage location that's more convenient to them. Some customers might say, oh, well, I'm not really secure with the cloud storage. I want to manage it on my own, or I might have my own third-party storage through some Amazon S3 or an Azure Blob Storage. So we can configure an on-premises storage zone to actually front-end all of that traffic and actually send the data to an on-premises location, so you can actually have it stored securely on your own network if necessary, or using, again, some other cloud storage provider. Again, data is probably being stored today on department drives or home drives and on libraries that users use, either getting a map drive when they log in, a department drive otherwise. So we can provide access to that through our connectors features, through storage zones. And no matter where the users are, if they're off the network, they're using no matter what device they're on, they can get access to data that might only be available if you're in the corporate office. And again, integrating with other third-party storage, it's hugely important. Users go around and they're clicking in different applications and they're clicking in different browser windows and they're told to get things from different locations, and somebody shares something with them and they have to go pull it from somewhere. The best thing about the content collaboration service and the Citrix Files apps themselves are that all of this information can be piled up into one location so the users can work out of one app.
And in different versions too, Brian, right? I mean, I think the real takeaway here is that content collaboration can be really the gateway for all of your data repositories, and secure.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit about user provisioning and getting users into access, but we also need to look at the functional features that are driven by that. So we have something called our policy-based administration feature. This works in conjunction with our user management tool. So at the time that you're ready to get users onboarded into the system and get them provisioned into content collaboration, we're assigning the proper user access policies. We're assigning the right file and folder management policies. We're giving them the right storage location the very first time that they log in and get created. This is a huge pain if you have to go backwards if you don't do this right from the beginning. There's ways to move data between storage locations if that has to happen. We have tools that could potentially do that, but it's much better for you if you do it right the first time and you know where your users are going to live and you know what access to data they need.
And I think the key is what Brian said, right the first time, and this is where your CSM comes into play. Okay, so your customer success manager can help you put together a success plan and really outline what those use cases are and what the needs are for every single use case that you have for this technology. So all of that information will be ready prior to you deploying it into the technology.
Yep, absolutely. So the last piece here, the policies move as users do. So this is a really important piece. So if you have somebody that's been a standard end user, maybe they need more admin access now, or you want to give them reporting rights or some other types of rights, you can simply just change their group in AD, and the user management tool will pick up on that and provide them access to the features that they need the next time that the user management tool synchronizes. So we talked a little bit about the tools that are the tools of the trade. Very popular tool today, provided by GPO most of the time, would be our Citrix Files for Windows or Mac. This is, again, a very familiar tool to us, but it's super important that you get your users to use this because, again, it's going to really help them kind of move forward and keep their existing jobs, existing work habits, just like they normally do, right? So if I'm a PC user and I'm in Windows, I probably have map drives. I've probably been using them for a long time. I can just simply go into the Citrix Files S drive or whatever drive letter you want to create for them, and I can see all of my content collaboration content, in addition to, again, other types of files like personal cloud connectors like those Box, Dropbox. I can see personal folders for data that I might have added into the system. And again, I can get to those network shares, like, again, department drives, home drives, that instead of having to worry about doing that on, on my PC otherwise. And again, if I'm out of the office, the same thing applies. I can have my computer, I can have a laptop, I can be on the road, I can get to that. There's also great context menus when you're actually working inside of those files and folders. The right-clicking to share a file just natively using whichever mail app, check in and check out, so I can actually block a file from being used by somebody else if I'm actually working on it. I can selectively sync files if I need to. Again, if I'm going to be remote, I'm going to be working without having internet access, et cetera. I can make sure that I have folders that I know I need are really important and just selectively sync those down to my device. This is also the tool that you'll deploy usually in your virtual apps and desktops environments. It takes up very, very little space, of course, because again, it doesn't synchronize files until you click on them or you selectively do so. Our Citrix Files for Outlook client is probably our most popular client. The best thing about this, again, it will take the onus off of your Exchange server with all of that information that actually happens when you save or send a file. Again, we're going to automatically convert all attachments to links, such that way, again, it's much faster experience for your end users and for your IT admins from an Exchange standpoint. The admins can hard control and hard code your settings inside of the Outlook plugin or the Citrix Files for Outlook client. Again, if we mandate that certain files have retention, if we mandate that certain files, when you're sharing them, can only be shared 5 times, I mean, we have ways that you can lock down some settings in there.
How many people are using Citrix Files for Outlook? It's my favorite.
Yep. Email encryption is another great feature as well. So I'm typing up an email and there might be some sensitive content in there and I'm saying, oh, you know what? I want to make sure that this email doesn't get forwarded to somebody, or I want to protect the content of even the body of the message. I can enable email encryption. When a user goes and clicks on the email message, they'll have to be prompted to actually authenticate to Content Collaboration to see it. They won't be able to share that message at all as well. And of course, we want to make it easy for the users to gain access to their files and folders. And there's SSO for ease of access right into the Content Collaboration service, right? So I'm an end user, I log into my PC, whatever credentials I've used, the app launches in the background, it launches with Outlook, and I'm already signed into Content Collaboration. No need to have the users enter any credentials. Our Workspace app, obviously you've heard a lot about Workspace this week. This is going to be our go-to app for all of Citrix Files going forward. This, again, it encapsulates all of what we have to offer today. Apps, desktops, files. We give the security controls that you've seen this week as well, so locking down screen grabbing, locking down key logging. That all applies when you're using the Workspace app, even into the Citrix Files. Another great feature that was just released with our latest version of Storage Zone Controller is single sign-on to your connectors. So if you're using the Workspace app and you have those department libraries like home drives, department drives, et cetera, we can just natively sign you in because you've already authenticated to Workspace. We can sign you right into your connectors in that regard. Contextual search, this is really, really great feature. So if I have a document and I don't remember the name of the document, I have some paragraphs that I've written in the document and I need to look for content inside of that, we can actually do contextual search inside of this application. And the best thing about the Workspace app is that it's a unified look and feel. So no matter what version of the Workspace app that you're using, you're going to see the same exact feature set, right? So this is the web app. I've logged into the web app in Workspace. It's exactly the same. The users basically have, we're not trying to disrupt users and having them work differently depending on what type of tool that they're using. Again, it works in all browsers. There's no client to install. This is where your external users would wind up going, so third-party users that you're sharing documents with. So I share a link, a user clicks on a link, they're redirected to log into a web browser, and then they would pull their files and folders down that way. Our mobile application, this is really an important tool, right? So again, same look and feel, but the most important piece of this here is, again, gaining access to data when I'm on the go. I might be offline, I want to save files, I can do that with the mobile application. Again, I can use the connector features and get into those home drives and department drives where normally I would have to get some sort of a VPN client, which essentially is not a very good experience on mobile. I can send documents. All the features and functionality of using the other apps are embedded into the mobile application. We also have clients for Gmail and Outlook Online. These are great because, again, if you're used to using content collaboration and you know you have files located inside of the service, but you're using one of your native clients, that your personal work, you can actually grab files and folders from there as well. So we'll transition into migrating to content collaboration, right? We need to make sure that we do it the right way, so we need to determine what type of data we're trying to migrate into the service. We have to look at, hey, I have a lot of legacy data that's on-premise. I'm looking to shut these servers down. They have poor performance, et cetera. How are we going to move that data into content collaboration so I can get away from that legacy environment? And then again, users. What are we going to do with the users as far as getting them to develop the service?
And of course, without disrupting their work environment too, making sure it's the right way.
Yeah, again, those tools that you've seen in those screenshots, again, it's native to their work experience now, so we want to just make sure that's as fluid as possible for them. So when we're migrating, we have to think about what platform are we migrating from. We have legacy shares, right? We all know we have legacy CIFS, NTFS shares with permissions on them, department drives, home drives. Are we migrating from another cloud provider? Is there a service somewhere that we have to pull that data down from? Or do we maybe leave that data there and eventually shut it off, but we give users access to that right from within, again, those applications that you saw earlier. So we have those personal cloud connectors that we can actually leverage to pull data down from there and import it into content collaboration. Are we not migrating, actually? Are we standing up net new storage? Are we looking to basically just start from scratch, right? So if you're going with our cloud storage, do we have the right zones enabled for where the users are going to live? Do we have, East Coast data center location, West Coast data center location? If we're standing up on-premises storage, the ideal scenario is to protect that with a Citrix ADC. There's a built-in configuration for load balancing your storage zone controllers with that. That also provides really good security such that it protects the web application that actually front ends the storage zone from just being out there on the internet. Right? We can just drop requests that are not initiated when a user uploads or downloads a file using some responder policies that, again, that are built in using that configuration wizard. The ADC will also provide you with your AAA virtual server to front end the connector access. So if we're using the Workspace app, we don't really have to worry about this, but if we're using some other applications and we don't have the right Kerberos or SSO policies, a user might be presented with another challenge or another authentication prompt to get into those home drives and libraries, and we can use the AAA on the NetScaler to circumvent that. So let's say we have some legacy data out there that's on some network share, and I'm saying, I need to get it into content collaboration. Do we have a tool for that? Absolutely. We have a data migration tool. We can point to folders on your network and sync them right into our content collaboration service. We can maintain permissions for that as well. So if you have department drives or home drives or anything that has either personal or shared access, we can maintain all of those permissions and bring it into the service for you. We also have a beta service which is going on now, which is part of another team that works with us, which is actually a cloud-to-cloud migration tool. This right now is only for content collaboration accounts. We're looking to expand that a little bit later. But what this can do is, let's say you have M&A purchasing, customers have legacy content collaboration environments. We want to move it over to a new one, or et cetera. We can actually move that data between accounts, maintaining permissions, maintaining all the structure that was there before, and even pulling the users over. Last but not least is, again, the users, which, of course, the users are not last, but with all of this importance, we want to introduce the right tool for their job, but we want to make it as streamlined as possible, right? We want to make sure that their work is not disrupted, and we want to make sure that we provide them with access just the same way they were before, right? Give them an experience that they've been using for a long time, and just make it really easy to absorb. Again, using content collaboration, using the right tools, right-clicking on files, sharing. Using the Citrix Files for Outlook, sharing. Don't disrupt their workflow, right? They're just basically, we want to make it as easy as possible. And again, working with your admins and your IT team, we can make sure that we're developing the right solution for you. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it
Are
over
we
to
ready?
Bern for adoption.
Adoption, my favorite. So this is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is all of your efforts now realized. So we're going to tell you what you need to know, tailoring the user experience, and building your champion network, my favorite. Real simple. You got to find out who you want to roll it out to. So you might want to use your initial use case. You may want to use several different champions from different lines of business along with your initial use case. But you want to make sure that whatever that first pilot test is, that you're going to get the best feedback and insight from what you're rolling out. Because you want to be able to test and tweak that before it actually goes out to your first set of users, right? The most important there is define success criteria, another area where your customer success manager can help you define that success criteria. So before you're rolling out this technology, you want to be able to check off those boxes. You want to be able to make sure you're meeting your timelines and you're getting that feedback. Have you met that success criteria? Have you met it in the timeline that you wanted to meet it? Have you satisfied your customer, your end users, your employees? So those are the things that you want to make sure you document before you do your pilot testing. And last is your rollout strategy. Yeah, I mean, if you're a one and done, roll it all out, that's one method. Our best practice is to make sure that you do different tiers of rollout and make sure that each time you do that, that you're getting the right feedback and you have the right champions and different ones so you can continue to enhance the product that you're providing to your end users. So a little bit about some things you need to think about. You know, adoption really starts before you even start to design the technology, right? You have to go out there and understand who your customers are, who are your app owners, right? Who are those lines of business that you need to connect with? Because there may be one that needed the technology, but you want this to scale, right? So you need to know how they work. You need to know what's going to make them productive. You also need to know that whatever they do for their daily work, that you can help them increase their productivity by giving them this technology. And you also need to know what their security needs are. So someone in HR might be very different than someone in a different admin role. I keep talking about champions. It's soliciting the champions, the ones who like to get their hands into new technology. Find out who they are, because you know what? Those are the ones that are going to have feet on the street. I love this. One of my customers said this to me. And they send out these champions to the different lines of business and talk about the technology you want to roll out, right? And they make sure they understand how they work. So they can take that information and let the people rolling out the technology know how they can better serve that particular line of business. And also how they can certainly understand what some product enhancements might be that will help them. Communication, can't do it without that, right? You got to get them ready, you got to get them excited, you got to find every single way that you can reach them, whether it be in different Slack channels, intranets, all different kinds of media, because this is what you're doing. You're rolling out the future of work. So that communication, again, like I mentioned earlier, needs to start even before you're rolling out before you're even designing the technology. And one of my customers gave me this incredible idea, but you need to connect with support, right? They need to adopt, so the way that you're going to find out if they're not adopting is they're going to have some issues. So connect with support. Find ways in which they can create forums. So there's different pockets of areas where they can ask anything and make sure that they get the training that they need so they continue to use the technology. So they continue to adopt, they continue to ask questions. And most important, training. Make sure you have different forms of training. Online training, instructor-led training, anything that is going to reach them, because everyone finds a different way in which they need to learn. So customer success is really, the team that is going to help you drive that technology. We're going to give you all the best practices we can give you. and you can definitely receive all that kind of information when you become a subscription customer with your Customer Success Manager. However, we have our Cloud Success Center, and you can get these best practices right from our microsite, which went live today. So we have 2.0 that is live, and you can see a lot of what we're talking about today from our Cloud Success Center website. Our bold statement, Brian.
Go ahead.
You ready?
Yep, let it out.
The importance of this transition is so great that Citrix has a whole team, our team, that can help you achieve success as seamless and smoothly as possible. So when you become, or if you are a subscription customer, please connect with your CSM and make sure we can help you in any way that we can.
Yeah. Thanks, Bern. So we want to get into any stories from the audience. Does anybody have any great success stories out there of deployments, or have any questions regarding any deployments that they've run into? Hands? No? Yes? And again, the deployment is something that we have to look at, really important. I had a large financial customer that were really like strict on, we don't want to use cloud at all. We don't want to go and have to stand up any type of telling our users to have to go to some third-party site to go download and share files, et cetera. Eventually, we got them in the right direction. They adopted the content collaboration service, but they wanted to make sure that they had the most secure environment possible. So I had to stand up 3 separate content collaboration accounts for them. And in doing so, we had, again, that's protected behind Citrix ADC. We had internal storage zones for internal data. Again, we had a QA environment. We had a test environment, and then we had a prod environment. So again, anytime changes needed to be made, we made sure that they weren't affecting the masses, and just making sure that we're giving them the right tools that they need to so when they hit prod, they won't run into any problems. Any other Q&A?
That's all we have for you today. We would like to open it up for questions.
Yeah. I think it was, go ahead and repeat that. I didn't hear it very well.
I didn't hear.
Would he get help from us through your account team? Do you want to get that one?
Okay, so through the account team, right? Citrix account team, absolutely. So we work very closely. We're sort of an extension of the account team. As long as you're a subscription customer, we actually are introduced to you through the account team. More than likely we are.
Yeah, so the account teams definitely, they reach out to us, right? Again, prior to your purchasing potentially, as well as afterwards. You want to make sure that we're answering those specific questions to make sure that the whole transaction is really smooth. Any other questions?
Okay.
Right, we are looking at that. There are roadmaps for that, absolutely. Right now, of course, when customers have their data and they want to maintain it on premises, that's traditionally it's their choice as far as where to stand that up. If you stand it up in some sort of, again, data governance or some sort of gov account, you can certainly do that with your storage. We have a customer that is doing that today.
Yes. Oh, awesome. That's great. So we have someone up here who just provided an example of working with one of our CSMs through a very tough migration and providing documentation and templates and things that they wouldn't have thought of, without working with someone on our team. So thank you for that.
Yep, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so a couple of things if we can go to, please, before you leave, make sure you do the survey, and even more important, make sure you do the rating. But we have a couple of hashtags.
Yep.
So hashtag @BurnRisley. I'm on Twitter or any one of these. You can also hashtag and say, happy birthday to Brian today. Woo!
Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank
All
you,
right,
everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody.